Greetings, Boris and Ghouls. This is Dr. Von Mad, and today we're going to make a monster. So, what we're going to be using is Sculpey. You've seen that before. I've been baked dry clay, and stay soft until you bake it. We've used it for making dinosaur dioramas, and today I'm getting it mashed up because it does take a little working into. You have to mash the monster muck up. I think we're going to do a bust of Frankenstein. What do you think? So, first thing we're going to do is try to get this clay kind of molded into place. Because you got to get this clay soft and pliable. Now, let's begin. So we all know Frankenstein's monster has a square head, so we're going to start with that. Now this won't be the classic Karloff monster, at least not entirely. This is going to be my own twist on it. So, we do kind of want that flat sort of head going on. Let's see, you got this right here. Now if you have a little water, you can make that go away. So we're going to start with that right there. I like to sculpt heads. Now, we want him to have this big jaw jutting out, so we're going to push this out like so. And squish his head down just a little bit. Get rid of that crease right there. Now let's see. He's probably going to be a little lumpy. And we'll try to see if I can get rid of some of that. Right now what we're doing is shaping in the basic shape of his head. And he's got this tumor right there. That's not going to work. Let's pull that down. Don't want any weird tumors on my monsters. Now, let's see. I'm going to make a bit of an Adam's apple. At least a hint of it. Maybe do a little bit of musculation around this neck. Just pinch it around like this. See, it just barely comes in there. Makes him look like he's really arguing with himself. Now, kind of smashing his forehead a little bit. Now we've got his head, the jaw shaped out, the skull's where I want it, so let's start making the ears. Now, when I think about making Frankenstein, I always make his ears very small. So that's where we're going to begin. Now I'm going to grab my first tool, in this case, a clay loop. And I'm trying to remember where I got this. Hang on. Bit of clay on there. This is a Klemper W1A USA, so these are really nice tools, and you use them to you can use them to carve out things like right in here if you need to come in like this with it. Kind of peel it down a little. It's kind of smooth in after it. See, we're just gonna shape in the ears now. So I don't want to go getting a whole lot, just kind of barely go along the edge. I ain't going to give it much in the way of an earlobe. See, now it's kind of got an ear. If it's a little bit messed up, you're making a monster, not a Picasso. Even though a lot of Picasso's work was kind of monstrous. Let's pinch this ear around the same way. Make sure it's even, and it is. And now, kind of come in behind here. Just kind of now nudge that up. Yes, watching Michael do all of his stuff with his paintings kind of awaken the artist that sometimes awakens in me anyway. He does painting, I sculpt. Now let's get to his face. Monster's gonna have a big, strong nose, and we'll get to that. What we're gonna do is we're gonna pull this down. I want to kind of pull some more of this out here, because what I'm wanting to do is to kind of block his nose out. Almost kind of like Kiwi Kingston was in Evil of Frankenstein. I think that was it's almost as good as Karloff. And as you've probably intimated by now, on Halloween coming up, I am a huge Frankenstein buff. So, let's see. We're kind of starting. Now, going to grab our loop again. Going to come over here. Kind of just scrape out under here, because we're going to, his mouth's going to be right in here. So, we're going to go ahead, let's put in some nostrils. And I'll kind of, now I've got a little blade right here. I'm going to use that to kind of press in around the nose. See how that's doing? Now it's kind of, there we go. I do the same thing over here. Honestly, the cavity created by me by just pushing in the nostril did enough of that. But there you are. Now we can also come in and do this and broaden it out a little bit. Now, that's where we're at right now. Let's go ahead and get the start shaping in the mouth. I want the mouth, he's going to be, I've been accused often of making my sculptures a little bit cartoonish, but cartoons are art too, so that don't bother me none. Now we're going to come up here, we're going to cut. You'll be able to see what I'm doing here in just a minute. I'll make him, like I said, I want him to be a little bit on the cartoony side. But I don't want him being too cartoonish, but I want to be a little bit cartoonish. Because this is kind of the way I do things. See, now we're just going to come in right here. Grab there's a blade in right there. It's a little bit busted, but we're going to use it. Maybe a little too big. Oh, there goes my loop. My hand's not as sturdy as it once was. There you go. Now we're going to seal this off right here. Kind of just put this clay down here on the base, and I'll deal with that in its time. Kind of use your fingers. Your fingers can be used here. Alright, now you can already start to see a face shaping up here, I hope. Now, let's do some eyes. Now, the eyes are a bit of a tricky business too, but we're going to start with a rather fine point blade, because we're going to try to see if I can get this head to kind of square up right here in the front. I want these kind of a brow ridge, kind of to, as an homage to the Karloff creature. So we're going to try with a triangle blade now. And I always make my monsters a little bit asymmetrical, just simply because of the fact that I think that the monster would be very asymmetrical. And I'm going to come in with this blade here and kind of cut that in. See, now you're kind of getting this kind of a feel for it. And what we're going to do now is we're going to come in with this blade from the back side of it and do this, kind of cut in the eye. And then we're going to come up here, we're going to do that again, kind of carve it out. It may look a little bit rough right now, but it will come out right in the end. So now we're going to push some eyelid up here. and kind of smooth it out. He's gonna have deep set eyes, so now let's go up here and kind of, if you don't like, if you want a little more detail into it, you can just kind of come in now and just kind of smooth it out. Come back up here, use this tool again. There we go. Now, let's do the other eye. Now, with the other eye, I think I'm going to do something a little bit different. I'm going to widen this out just a piece because I've got an idea. Like I said, I like my monsters to be a tad asymmetrical, so what we're going to do is we're going to make him a big eyeball here. See if I can do this where I'm going to move this camera where you can see what I'm doing. Because I realized that just now that my hand was kind of blocking the view. So, gotta remember that I'm left-handed. That makes it a little bit awkward for everybody. So I don't want his eyes to match. That's the thing. Let's see, now then, let's make him a little more angry looking. Turn that mouth down just a hair. Let's turn that smile upside down. Right now he just looks rather bored. Go for this blade here. Let's see. Now, kind of smooth off the end of his nose. He's got like a weird crease right there. I don't like that. Just a little dish of water. Alright, that should do the job. Now, kind of come in here with this. This kind of really flare that. And they're going to put a little tiny dimple right there. So let's come in here with this again. Dab that in. There you are. Now, see what he looks like thus far. Now, let's flatten his head a little bit more. I'm not putting any hair on this one. As another inspiration I've always had for Frankenstein's monster was the monster from the Monster in My Pocket toy line from the early 90s, which I think was a really cool sculpt for the monster. I used to have one. Alright, we're going to cut a hole for his ear now. Just kind of a little half moon right in there. It ain't got to be perfect. Does not have to be perfect. Now, we are going to come up here inside the ear, kind of shape it a little bit. Friends, Romans, countrymen, lend me your ear. Apparently he lost one. Now, we're going to come in here around the cheekbone and just shape in this cheekbone just a hair. And you see, that's as simple as doing, just pressing in a little bit right around there. Kind of gives the face a little bit of definition. Now, go up here, there's a little bit of a hang on there. We don't want that. Now, next thing we're going to do, we've got to lay him up like this where you can see what we're doing. Let's go ahead and put some scars and things on him. Now remember this eyeball? We're going to have it veer off right in here. And make sure you got this where you can see it. Hang on, I'm just adjusting the camera a piece. This camera is a little bit... No, it's trying to tilt. Hang on. Hold on, I gotta fix the camera. It's trying to turn. There we go. No, don't know. Got an idea. Alright, wise guy. There we go. Not gonna get away from it that easy. Now, we're gonna put a bit of a cut right in here So I mean, part and parcel of the whole Frankenstein story is to have stitches and scars and nasty bits. So what we're going to do is we're going to push this down to kind of create a gouge. Now we're going to come over here, grab our wire loop. We're going to kind of do that, and then we're going to put another one right here, and we're going to push that up. Now, so we'll go for our little scooper right here, our little spoon. And I don't know the real name of it, but I've been using this one since I was in high school. So, see, it's got a little cut, so we want to have a little hint of some suturing, but make it look like maybe Dr. Frankenstein didn't quite get to sewing the eye completely up. Now, you're going to come over here, and we're going to start working on the skull, on the head. Now, I got to go in here before I do anything, and let's smooth out this eyeball. There you go. What do you think so far? Now, it won't look near as good until after we're done. We're going to come up here, and I've always said, if I was going to build a Frankenstein monster, I wouldn't use the electrodes, but I'm going to put electrodes on him. But what I was thinking is, what I would have done is I would have put like a plug-in on the back of his head, where he plugged directly into the brainstem. But it's not Frankenstein unless you have those bolts, and I'm gonna put those on the side of his head, probably from another piece of clay here in a minute. That's what I like about working with Sculpey. With Marblex, you kind of have to do it out of the one piece. Marblex is good for a good many things, but you still have to do it out of one piece, and therefore it's a little more limiting in what you can do. Now, I'll come over here. Now, what I'm going to do here is we're going to come up here. I'm going to grab a couple of smaller pieces of this clay because I've got something in mind. Grab another piece here. One of these days I'm going to get the time and the stuff to be able to get like some of the colored Sculpey to tinker with. But in the meantime, we're going to use what we got. In this case, this is going to be one of the metal clamps. That's going to hook on right there, and it's going to be a good solid piece of steel. So what you're going to do is you're going to come in here around this, and you're going to want it to kind of carve in right here and connect these stitches. And I will come up here and kind of nudge them to try to depress the clay around them to make them stick out a little bit more. See how I'm doing here? This is where the brain is. The reason that this monster had a flat, the reason the original... Alright, we're back. This thing has an 18-minute time limit before it cuts out. So what we're going to do now is we're going to put you realized I didn't put any kind of anger lines up here on the forehead. You know, when you make a mad face, you kind of get this little bunch of tissue right here. So we're going to see if I can bunch that up and make kind of that sort of a thing going on up here without looking like he's got some sort of weird death ray stuck between his eyeballs, which would be kind of bizarre. Now, just kind of just barely carve it out here. I don't want it perfectly square, so... Now, where were we? Oh yeah, we were over here. Let's grab this end of it, this little triangle blade. We're going to come up here. Now, mine's a little bit beat up, but probably older than some of the people watching these videos, so there you are. Bought this at Michael's Crafts many years ago, before there was a YouTube. So there we go. Now around here I'm going to cut a very deep gash. Now we're going to come up here and we're going to use this flat end right here to kind of see if we can nudge down some of this clay that's up here. That's going to be too much right there. It's just, that's not really a good tool for that. So let's see what we can do here. Now, so far, kiddies, our monster is coming across nicely, don't you think? Yeah, mad manner. And with Halloween coming up, this is a tremendous skill. Everyone needs to know how to make a monster. Yes. Let's see. Now, let's cut a very deep gash right here. Just trying to avoid mangling his face. I know. A little late for that one. Alright, now come in here, carve this down. And pull that out now. There we go. Now, make this kind of tilt up. So you got to remember, Victor Frankenstein was not a practicing doctor. He was more or less a research scientist, so his surgery technique isn't going to be particularly skilled. He was a student of the unhallowed arts. He was not a master. People don't realize that. It could be even argued that, as much as I love the characters in Frankenstein, that Victor Frankenstein's success at building the monster was just sheer dumb luck. Because there's just so much that can go wrong with trying to reanimate the dead, you know. Because the body starts to decay just seconds after death. Really, practically speaking, getting these stitches in here while I'm talking to you. There you go. That you would almost have to have a volunteer to die in a controlled condition like a freezer, because the brain starts to deteriorate seconds after death. The internal organs, the stomach acid breaks through and starts decaying, you know, eating the organs from the inside and rotting the thing from the inside, dissolving everything. God and nature protect their secrets very well indeed. So really, it would be very tricky to do that. And certainly building a body out of composite parts would be almost out of the question, I would wager, for the simple fact that, see where I was handling it, and it started to smudge. Now that's alright, we can fix that. Now, I'll come up here. We're going to make another suture right above the eye. And press it down around here. Let's cut more here. Kind of get this suture into place. There's another one right here. Now, it's going to be some ugly stitches, I know. But it's, again, it's a Frankenstein monster. Did you expect, you know, that Henry Frankenstein or Victor Frankenstein was a plastic surgeon? Probably not. Now, if I was doing a much bigger one, I would do like where the holes where you could actually see where the stitches went into the flesh. As small as this is. Now, if you remember the one that I bought from Dollar Tree and painted, I just kind of painted these on, but he was more cartoony than this guy even. Now, I'm going to put his bolts on him now. Thinking I'm going to put them right up above the ear, well, at least one of them above the ear. See, the problem is I've got this crooked stitch right here. I might just go ahead and just put him on his neck. Let's go ahead and get some clay out, and I'll make his neck bolts. These are the electrodes in which feed the power that's supposed to bring the monster to life. So we're going to start with some smaller bits of clay here. Get this bit of glue string off of it. My workshop's a bit of a mess lately. So much has to be done in here. Alright. Just basically do it like this. Then you're going to come up here with this tool here. Now you could put a Phillips screw. I'm going to just kind of put we'll make a Phillips screw. Yes, I am. There we go. Now, what you're going to do is you're going to come up here and you're going to put this on the side of his head. And I'm going to use the wire to kind of smooth it in, and then we'll get it centered here. And I'm going to put maybe a stitch or two around the neck where it looks like the head itself was sewn on. There you go. Now, I'm going to come up here and carve some of this down. There you go. And a little bit more of it carved off here. So I'm trying to give this thing sort of a head so it looks sort of like a bolt. I don't want it being just this weird cylinder that looks like somebody glued a can to the side of his head. Because that would not be right. Now, this is actually the hardest part. Believe it or not, it's easier to do organic stuff than it is to do mechanized stuff. This mechanized stuff is all about, you know, precision, and it's all machine, therefore it's all mathematical. Whereas when you're dealing with something like that, that looks not too bad. While we're up here, we're going to go ahead and use a piece of this clay to put a little rivet right there onto that one metal plate that's up there. Now, let's make us a bolt for the other side. I think that looks pretty decent, actually. Anyway, he looks more amused than he does anything. Now, we're going to try something a little different this time. I'm going to lengthen this bolt out, and then we're going to flatten this up here on this end to kind of make it look more bolt-like before I even attach it. Now, come in with this blade right here, this particular tool. If you don't have tools like this, I used to use everything from nails to thumbtacks, toothpicks, whatever. You can use. Making your own tools is actually not that difficult, but the professional tools will give you a level of detail that the others will not. Alright, now, see how that looks. I think that looks pretty decent. Now, thinking, do I really want to put a stitches up around the neck? No, but I do want to put one more scar on him here. And that's going to be right here on the side of his face. So what you're going to do is you're going to have a, put a scar right down through here. Now we're going to come up here. I'll try a different technique over here than I tried on the other two. I'm going to start with a piece of clay here. And just kind of, well, a little less clay. Set this down and get a little tiny piece. I don't need a very big piece, no bigger than nothing. Because if you get too much, it's going to be too bulky and you're going to look like somebody used telephone lines to stitch him up. And that won't do. So, there we go. Lay the head over here. We're just going to gently lay this up here across. See, we're going to try different techniques here so you can learn all sorts of different techniques while you're sculpting. So, I mean, once you've watched me do it, I think you ought to be able to get it. When you're messing with sculpting, you always remember that it's gonna be very, very pliable until you bake it. At which point it's going to be hard as rock and fairly resistant to just about anything. There you go, just a couple of little stitches. Now, I was going to maybe do something around the neck, but I think that's quite enough. Let's go over here and see if we can tinker to kind of shore up this just a piece. There you go. Now, we're going to go bake this, and we will be back with you when it's dry. This is Dr. Von Mad, and we'll be back with you soon. This is Dr. Von Mad, and we're back. We're about to paint our monster. You grab this before it falls off here. We've already got it done. I got him a little bit overcooked on the bottom, but we're going to paint over it, so it's not a big deal. Pardon me, just a little bit on the congested side. We're going to start with this black, and I've got some black that's kind of thinned out because it's a little past its due date. I'm going to start with it because we're just kind of using it to slather. It's not really worried about whether it's going to slosh off or not. So we will begin with that. We're going to take a this giant brush here and clean it off. And we're going to begin with the overcoat now. I'll try to avoid getting too much of it onto my nice new white board, but it's kind of what a work board is for, I suppose. So we're going to try to get it. We need to, that's one reason I use the watery stuff, because I know that it will soak into all the cracks and crevices. Don't want any white showing on it. So, paint the top of this big old chrome dome. So you can see you got a little spot right underneath the chin here that needs sloshed up. I may grab my tray for the rest of this. So I am getting a bit of black paint everywhere. And he's still warm from the baking process, so I'm hoping that he will get done pretty quickly. See, right now we're just kind of, this is pretty well par for the course, just kind of getting the paint into the crevices and cracks and crannies here. There we go. And that's where we're going to let that dry up and see how that looks now. Just trying to make sure. I'll check it when it dries and see if we've missed anything. So like I said, he is warm, so we're going to let that do its thing, and we'll cover this black paint up until we're done here. So, this is Dr. Von Mad, We're going to let this guy dry, and we'll see you cats on the flip side. Be back. Alright, this is Dr. Von Med. We're about to paint the next coat on here. In this case, thicket. Kind of a dark green. We're going to go over the whole thing with this. So there's still a few little white spots, but they'll be covered up. There's not a whole lot there. So I think I got enough on there, and what I didn't get's down there on the darker side at the bottom. So not really worried about that. So what you're going to do is you're going to get some of this thicket colored paint here. I don't want to get too much. And it's going to be the thickest coat aside from the black itself, but you still don't want a whole lot of extra on it, because you do want to kind of leave some detail. So what you're going to do is just very quick strokes like so. And you should start to kind of a corpse greenish gray, which I'll probably work with. See, I got a little bit of paint on the bottom down here that's sticky up. That didn't quite get. That's okay. I'll get into his nose a little bit. It's hard to get paint on up there. See, there was a bit of paint right in there. So you can see right there where it didn't get, but that's where it's kind of burnt anyway. Where I got the clay a little too hot. But see, you can see the detail right there. So let's get his face good and greened up. Grab some more green paint. And just keep hitting it now. In case anyone's wondering, I have been sculpting my entire life as far as clay goes, and I have been painting it since about early high school. My cousin taught me how to paint, and it is a style that I have continued with to this day. Sure, I've made a few little mods here and there, but it's still, I owe her a lot of thanks for the way that, from what I do with the painting. It's taken me far. So you can already see where the color's going from black to light green. Now, see how this is looking. Right now he just kind of looks like he's olive drab. But all this detail will come out in its time. See, I'm just going to make sure all this paint's already dried. Alright. Our next step, let's go for a slightly lighter color. I'm going to wash this brush off and clean it off real quick. Now, the next color up. Now, the first one was thicket, which you can see sort of an olive drab. The next one's going to be real green, which is slightly brighter than the thicket. We're not going to use as much paint on this one as we used on the other one. We're not trying to coat it. We're trying to layer the coloring. So what you're going to do is you're going to grab some of this and we'll channel Michael a minute and kind of beat this brush just a hair to get some of the extra paint off of it. Now, just barely want to kiss it, because what you want to do is just kind of pop the colors, because this is going to make, it's kind of like salting a dish. You want this color to kind of bring out more of the color that we want here. So we're going to get a bit of this, and dash this off just a hair, and then we'll take a look at it, and I'm hopefully going to get the lighting where you can see what I am doing. Dash a little more of this off because I need a little bit of paint on it, but not a whole lot. See, we're just, like I said, we're trying to go from olive drab to a more, almost a Lincoln green. And as you can see, is the more we do this, the more the details start to pop. Even the things you're not going to paint green, you're going to paint green right now because the majority of the sculpture is in fact green. And that is kind of what you're wanting to do. You want to make it look more like itself. We've got a little patch of grayish green right here that needs to be touched up, so I'm going to dab a little bit of this, beat this brush just a hair, and just barely kiss this thing with the brush. This is called dry brushing, by the way. Now, just a little bit on the tip, man, so we don't want it too heavy. Dab it a little bit, dab more here, because we're just barely using the tips of the brush tips to bring this out. Now, let's get up underneath his chin here. Because like I said, all this little, even the little marks that we did during the sculpting process are going to pop now. As you can see, the color's starting to layer up. We can put the details in when we're done with that. Now, we're fixing to go to another bright color. We've gone from thicket to real green. Now we're going to go to lime green, and we're going to use even less paint than we used with the other. So, let me shake this paint up, make sure we get any kind of liquids. There we go. Now, lay this here, dab a little bit of this, go over here, the obligatory slap, 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 slap. Now, just a little dab more and just kind of barely touch it. Now, what you're going to do now is just a bare light touch of it. And as you watch, see, that was too much right there. That's alright. Grab a little more of this, come over here, slap some of this extra off of it, and you should start to see, as we're doing this, the colors kind of popping, because you left all that darker green at the inside the very base, the black at the very basis of it, and then the dark, dark, dark olive drab green at the base of all of it. Let me check on my camera here. Oh yeah, we're in good shape. Alright. Slap some of this off. Come over here. And as you can see, this color's already starting to pop. So you're just wanting to, like I said, you're wanting to bring out details, and this is how you do that. You go from a darker color to a lighter color, because the darker colors are going to form their own natural shadows. See, now we're going to go over it with one other color now. We've gone from thicket green to real green to lime green, and now we're going to fresh foliage, a really light green, and we're just going to barely get any over it. And I'm going to go with this little chisel brush here and clean this off. Let's grab us a dab of this right here. Come over here. This time I'm going to do something a little unorthodox. I'm going to flip my palette upside down so we don't have a whole lot on it. And I'm going to set this dude right here so I can do this now. See how that was a little much. That was kind of what I was wanting to avoid. But as we quickly do this across this face and hit all these little spots, it should bring out all the color. Let me check where our... Okay, we still got 8 minutes on this particular session here. Get a little more of this paint. I don't want to use a whole bunch, but we are going to use a little bit now. That's what you're wanting to do, is bring this out. So, let's turn him. Turn him up on his side. You should start to kind of see what I'm doing here as I'm layering in. I'll get a little extra paint up here because I'm going to have to do some brush beading. Alright, I'm kind of getting this extra excess off and trying to keep from getting too much paint on him. Don't want it overpainted, but you got to have enough on here to kind of bring out the details that you were trying to bring out. Because it's all this paint works together. It's just very balanced is what you're trying to get. See how we're doing? Yes, I know I didn't put no hair on him. Didn't want any hair on him. Okay, we got 7 minutes. There we go. Now we're going to hit it with a surprising color because it's going to be the lightest one of all. I'm going to close up the fresh foliage. And we're going to bring a little white paint to the party. Just a pinch. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to just barely dust it. I don't want a whole lot on it, but I do. I need it to be just barely dusted. Clean my brush off here. Now, barely any white. Now I'm going to have to move this guy because I want some of this white taken off. And if it mixes a little with the green, that's okay because it's going to be just a lighter shade. I just want to highlight what we got. So let's kind of get this brush down to just barely touching it. And this should start to bring out all those details even better. And while we're here, I'll go ahead and start, because we're going to come back to the white anyways, because we need it for the stitches and things. Now you're thinking, what about the eyes? No, the eyes are going to be a different color. Trying to make sure I keep this on the camera. Check my minutes here. Just a pinch. I got a little too much white on that one. Okay, what we're going to do, we're going to mix a little of that in there. Just kind of cover that up. And see how I'm going here? It's not like painting a portrait because you're having to work in 3 dimensions. On the other hand, and I don't have to deal with the technical issues of foreshortening and things like that a portrait painter does. So kudos to those guys for knowing how to do that stuff. But it's kind of, if you get a little too much on there, just kind of use your finger to kind of dab it down. See, like I'm getting a little too much white on this one. See here. So you can see where the details are starting to pop. Now, set him down a minute. We are going to come back to these, but right now we're going first into the water here, and I'm going to be needing a fine point brush because we got to put the blood into this thing to make it look gruesome. For that, we're going to be using a little candy apple red. Where's my pen brush? Right here it is. See, and this is going to be the tricky part, especially since my coordination just isn't what it used to be. For this, I'm going to leave him up here on this and just kind of touch it in as I can. If you get a little bit of overhang, he's a monster. You're going to have maybe a little excess blood coming off. It's not a big deal. Let me turn him so you can see what I'm doing here. Alright, turn him. Now this time we're going to be going with a little more than we would if we were dry brushing, because this is detail stuff here. And you see we got this big gash right here where maybe the flesh is just not hanging like it ought to here. I'll have to get a little bit into that crevice. There you go. Now, same thing over here, and I'm gonna have to stop in a minute here and turn this camera back on because we're about to run out of time again here. So here's how we're gonna do that. Got one big gash here, got a little one right here, a little one right there. Turn him. Remember, we got this one cut over here. If you get a little bit extra, it's not a big deal. See, now this. Let's take a look-see at this thing before I switch out the thing. See how that's looking? Bring him up here to the light. So, we will be back in a minute. Alright, we're back. Now, we got all the red put in here, at least for the time being. Now, we're going to go next for the eyes. Now, if you read the novel Frankenstein, he did not have regular eyes like we would think of it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start with a little bit of daffodil yellow, provided this paint ain't gone thin on us. I think it'll be alright. And we're going to go back to our old friend the pen brush, because we're doing a detail work here and we're trying to get into the eyes. So here's how we're going to do that. Lay him on his back so you can see what I'm doing. We'll come up here and just barely get into the eyes. Now, I know people who make like rubber mask and things that they use like a airbrush for this. I don't have fancy equipment. So now, let that dry a few minutes. We're going to go to another color while that's drying out. In this case, we're going from the yellow to gunmetal gray. And this is a metallic paint. We're going to use that for his electrodes and probably for this metal plate up here. So we're going to go we need a brush slightly bigger than the pen brush, but slightly smaller than the wedge, and that's going to be this guy right here. Kind of a medium-sized brush. Get a little of this metallic paint. We're going to touch up his bolt up here, and I probably will go and get a little bit of... I'll probably stop in a minute here and go get some metallic copper, because I want to maybe put a little rust around, or maybe even mix a little of this with some brown to make like some rust. Make it look like it's worn, you know. Now, I'm going to do the same thing with his electrodes. You can see where the Phillips head screw is. So, you could have gone with silver, but honestly, I just kind of thought that the metallic would work better. If I don't like it, I can always paint back over it with some silver. I might end up doing that, but right now I think it looks pretty decent. So we're going to go ahead and paint this side here. I said before that it's easier to paint the organic than it is the mechanical, because the organic's going to be a little bit asymmetrical, because no two of anything is going to be the exact same, which is why some people end up with better eyesight in one eye than the other. So now, for a minute here, I am going to go back here, and I'm going to go back to this olive drab. Actually, I'm going to go back to the real green for just a half a second. Kind of got an idea. Go back to that and our little friend, the pen brush. So let me get the extra paint off here. Wipe this one down. Because what I'm going to do now is I want to kind of make it look a little bit like his eyes are a little bit sunken in around the head, at least on this side. So what we're going to do is we're going to come in here and just barely, barely touch right around in that eye. And he'd have a hint of it here, but not near as bad, because that eye's kind of wide open due to the stitches. Now, next, let's go for the white again. And we're going to go back to the pen brush as well. So, let's clean this pen brush off. And we're going to apply the stitches. So, what you're going to do is just get a little bit of the white, and we're going to come up here and bring that around here so you can hopefully see what I'm doing. Alright, pull that around. Turn. Now, turn again. Now, since we're over here, let's get the one on his cheek down here. Turn him again and get the one on the other cheek. Now, let's see how he looks. Close up the paint for a minute. We'll take a look-see. Remember, he's not yet done, but so what do you think so far? Now, the next thing we're going to do is we're going to go probably and let him dry a minute. So I don't want to do anything with those eyes until they're dried up. Let me see how dry it actually is. Nope, still damp. So I'll tell you what we're going to do. We're going to let that dry a few minutes and we'll be back with you when it is. Oh, this is Dr. Von Mad and we're back. We're about to put some more work onto our friend here. What we're going to go with next is, we went with yellow for the eyes. I'm fixing to go over it with a kind of a haze of vanilla ice cream color. Basically kind of an off-white. And the reason is, if you remember reading the novel, the monster was said to have yellowish eyes. I figure it's not going to be completely yellow, but it's probably going to be kind of an off-white, kind of an unhealthy sort of jaundice almost. So that's what we're going to go with next. So just kind of go over here and do the same thing. Just barely wanting to touch it. I don't want to get... There we go. Now, we'll go back over. I put a little bit of that black, of the dark green under that eye, and we'll kind of go over a little bit of the foliage that we went over for the top of it around that eye. Just kind of a I don't know, defensive measure. So I mean, you see it looks a little bit too much like makeup at this point. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to slosh some of that off, come up around. There we are. And we're going to let the eyes dry, and we'll see you in a few minutes when the eyes are dry and we'll start putting the pupils onto it. See how this looks real quick here. Oh yeah. We'll add a few more details here. One that I was going to go off in a second, but I think I'm going to go ahead and just kind of do a little bit more on it. For one thing, I'm going to use a little bit of this lime green and the pen brush. Where's my pen brush? Nope, pen brush. Here it is. At least that's one of them. What we're going to do is I want to kind of, I don't know, let's go with black. Black's even better than the green on this. So I'm wanting to make the lips kind of a different color. In this case, I'm going to go with the thicker black rather than the other stuff that runs, because the stuff that runs is good for a base coat, but you don't really want all that when you're doing any kind of detail work. It's not great. It is not awesome. So what you're going to do is you're going to go along here. Just scarcely touch it. And there you are. See what you think. There's still a little bit right up here on top, but I don't want to hazard to go in on top of it too much. So, I might need to, but so just kind of, there you are. Now he looks very cranky. Alrighty, we're going to let that dry a few minutes and we'll be back again to put the pupils and what all on here. Alright, this is Dr. Von Mad. We're about to put the at least some of the finishing touches on our monster here. So, we're going to start off with the eyes. Now, I told you there was going to be a bit of a surprise, or maybe I didn't, I don't remember, but we're going to have a bit of a surprise. The little eye over here, the one that looks fairly normal, we're going to paint it. The pupil's going to be nutmeg brown. That way, because the other eye, being a patchwork monster, he gonna have two different eye colors. So we're gonna get us a little bit of this brown. Got this one stray hair that's coming up here, and I hate that. Let's see if I can get this new little spot. I may have to get, yeah. Let's go with my other pinpoint brush, because that one there is not going to do it. It's got one stray hair that's coming off, and it's not making it nice and round like a good eyeball should be. Now, let's get us a good little dollop of this brown. And now, we're going to go for the other side. We're going to go with baby blue here, this what they call summer sky. This was nutmeg brown we just got through using. We're going to use summer sky over here for the other eye. Kind of hint home more of that patchwork idea, you know, patchwork creature idea. Then we'll let that dry a second. It's not not very much paint, so it shouldn't take too long to dry. Now we're going to come over here. Let's daub. There you go. Now he's looking particularly impressive. Now, I'm going to grab the other big and we'll close off the blue paint. At least I'm going to get one eye daubed on here. I might have to let, I got a little more blue on there than I meant to, so I'm going to have to let it do its bit. Let's clean off the blue paint off this pinpoint brush. Turn him up on his back. Just barely want to get any. Now, come up here and just barely any. Now, if he was any bigger, I'd probably put like a twinkle or something in his eye. I'm going to have to let that other eye dry, but there you are. Now, let's bring this thing around here. Grab this camera and let's see what he looks like here thus far. Get him up here where you can really see him good. Oh, that hurts. What do you think, guys? Pretty good. Alright, we're back. The battery went dead, so I had to come back and do that, but I was letting that eye dry. I can't do much more right now, I don't think, with that one. But you see one thing I am going to do. Got a little bit of fresh foliage, and he's got a little bit of a white spot. I'm just going to daub just a little bit on my finger here. And just go over it just a hair. Don't want a whole lot. Just a precious little right over his, right over there's a little white spot right there. Kind of blend that in just a little bit. Now, there you go. Now you can't tell it's there. So, let's see what it takes let's see what it looks like now that we can get it up here in the open. And there's only one thing left to do, and that's that one pupil on the blue eye that I put up here. See, he's got the one brown, and he's gonna have this one blue over here, kind of a pale blue. I could leave it like that, but so what do you think, guys? We'll see if I can get this other pupil put in place. And this sculpture should be done. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab, where's the pinpoint? Nope. Need my pen brush. Right there it is. Clean the pen brush off. Get it good and pointy like that. Let's go over here. Gather just a little bit of black paint. Come up here and just gently, ever so gently, come in and get a little bit more. Alright, and that should, actually, there is one final thing that needs done, as Michael says on his paintings, the last thing that needs to be done is the signature. Now for this, I've got this dark bottom on this thing, so I'm going to sign it with white paint. Then we will take a look at this thing, shall we? Uh-huh. There we go. Von Mad. And another thing I like about the Sculpey is how quick this dries. So let's take a look at our Frankenstein monster before I want to upload this. What do you think, guys? Don't like the little bead I was trying to get between his eyes. It didn't quite work as well. But happy with the facial features. Definitely happy with the paint job. The detail pops out really well. The scars look good. The stitches look good. I'd say that was a successful Frankenstein. So, this is Dr. Von Mad. And until the next video, we will see you guys on the flip side. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, hit the comments thing, and comment often. Let us know what you think. And bye-bye.